Hey guys, welcome to another video of my K24 swap into my 1995 Honda Civic. In this video, I'm going to be building the engine harness for my K24 engine. Now I'm using a Hondata ECU, and the engine harness I'm going to be using is a $50 RSX base model automatic engine harness. So as you can guess, there's quite a few things I need to do this engine harness to get it working with my K24 and with my Honda ECU and with my Accord 5-speed trans. So stay tuned. I'm going to go over everything that I did to this engine harness to get it to work for my setup. So the first thing, we're going to start over here. This is the crank position sensor. The wires are different on the wires and the connector are different on a K24. And if your engine comes with the sensor already in it, you can save some money by just swapping over the connector and making sure all the wires are in the right position as opposed to buying a K20 sensor. So I'll show everyone how to do that. Next, if we come up here to our injector harness, there's a ground right here, and there's nowhere to mount that ground. So we need to undo all of this, move the ground back so we can put it right here. This is where it's supposed to be grounded on the K24 intake. If you have a different intake, then you might have to move that ground somewhere else, or it might be okay where it is. Now moving to the throttle body area. This is where a lot of the stuff didn't line up. The TPS and the map sensor on the RSX harness are too short. So the TPS won't work, and the map sensor kind of works, but it's a little too tight. So we're gonna extend the map sensor. I pulled this off of the harness that came with this engine. So as you can see, the wires are really long, so I'll just splice those in there. And then the TPS, not only do I have to extend it, but the wires also need to be switched to work with the Accord throttle body. So if you have a RSX harness and you're using an Accord throttle body, you have to switch the wires. So when I extend this, all I have to do is make sure that this yellow is on the left and this green is on the right. So just swap them. It's easy. Now over here, my IAC, normally you wouldn't have to do anything to that. I think it should just plug right up. But in my case, the IAC connector on this harness was trash, so I'm just gonna splice these in and use this connector I got with this throttle body. So moving back here, we have our coolant temp sensor connector. And as you can see, the sensor's right here, so we're gonna have to undo all this so we can move that sensor back here. I think this is the TDC sensor. As you can see, this was a junkyard harness. This was a $50 harness, so things like this are expected, so I'm just gonna have to fix that. Aside from that, if you have a harness from a manual car, that's all you would have to do. You might have to change the wire or the connector on the vehicle speed sensor switch to work with your trans, but in my case, I don't even have a vehicle speed sensor connector. I have all of these automatic connectors. So my plan is to eventually remove these wires from the harness, but I do have to wire in a vehicle speed sensor. So there's a few options there. One option would be to grab this plug right here. And this has a black-yellow wire, which is a sensor voltage wire. And I could use that wire to power my vehicle speed sensor. A lot of people use this for the reverse lockout. You can also use this for the reverse lockout. I think the connector might even be the same. Now for the signal for the VSS, any one of these wires, a lot of these run all the way back to the ECU connector that is used on the automatic cars. So I can just move one of these over and use it for my vehicle speed sensor signal. And then back here, this is where a lot of those run. So this plug is not used on a manual ECU. It's not used on a Hondata ECU. So I can take one of these, move it to pin 18 on my A connector, and then I can use that as the signal for the vehicle speed sensor. And I think there's also like a signal out, and I'll wire that in afterwards. So that's it. I'm gonna get to continuing to take the tape off in this area. And I've already depinned one of the terminals. And as you can see, it does not go on the K24 crank position sensor. So you basically have to depin this connector, and then you have to depin your K24 connector. And then you basically have to then just slide the pins in on your harness into the K24 connector. The only thing you have to be careful of is it looks like some of the, okay, see how on the K20 connector, the red wire is in the middle, but on the K24, the red wire is on the right. So make sure when you slide the terminals into the K24 connector, you put them in the order for the K24 sensor. So it'll be yellow, black, then that's like a bluish color, I think, and this red, yellow one on the end here. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. So let's depin both these connectors. I'm gonna link a video below from VTech Academy on how to depin the connectors because they just do such a good job of explaining it. I don't think it's worth trying to repeat that here. So before I depin the K24 sensor, I'm just going to confirm that I moved this bluish wire to the center to match the K24 so that when I take this off, I can just slide these right in. Okay, so I just slid the terminals in. They just clip right back in, super easy. And they are lined up in the same order they were. Oh, that one's not slid on all the way, I'll fix that. They're lined up in the same order they were on the K24 harness. You know, obviously it goes right on there. So there you go. Super easy, super clean, no splicing, no, I think that's like a $40 part, and yep. This loom taken off here. I can't really like move this coolant sensor back, coolant temp sensor back, because it's entangled into this automatic plug right here. So I'm gonna have to untape this, and these are like, it's like a junction here, so I'll have to probably remove this wire and take these two and move them up here so I can move this back. Okay, so I got this all figured out. This green yellow wire, we got the coolant. This goes to the coolant sensor. This goes to the ECU, so this is where I think this is a 5-volt source possibly, coolant. And then down here, it splits off for that automatic connector, we got the TPS, and we got the IAT. So all three of these sensors are using this one wire from the ECU. So all we have to do is cut these two here and merge them in with this one. So I got everything laid out the way I wanted. I haven't started soldering anything yet, but I'll just show how I laid everything out. So there was a connector right here, as you saw earlier. We moved that out, and now we've got the injector wires tucked down below. So if you're looking, from the top, you really can't see them. And after I put some black loom on there, you probably won't be able to see them at all. Then this ground that used to be here, we moved it over here. And we're running that, we're sneaking that up through this hole here. I don't know if that hole is supposed to be there, but if it's not there, I'm sure you can just drill that out a little bit so you can clean that up. So I think it looks really nice just coming up through there. And then over here, we still have to extend our map wires for our map sensor. And I just got the map sensor tucked up right here now, so we're going to connect those two. TPS, still have to extend those wires. The IAC is right here. Here are the wires for that. We're going to connect those. We got our, I think this is the cam position, this is the top dead center, so those hook up. Coolant temp sensor, we moved, I think it was over here, we moved it back there. Then down here, we're going to, I've got these labeled. This is the, get that to focus. This is the IAT sensor. This runs to the TPS sensor. This runs back to the ECU, and this runs to the coolant sensor. So we're gonna wire all those together. The IAT's dangling down there. And then for the vehicle speed sensor, I had 3 wires here. But I think what I'm going to do instead is, this connector used to be all the way over here, hanging out here. So I'm going to take this, because this is really long. So I'll be able to take this, and this is the black yellow is the sensor power, and then this red blue, it's already on the A plug, I think. It might be on the B plug. I'll have to check, but either way, I'm gonna move this red blue to pin 18 on the A plug, and that's gonna be my VSS signal. And then I have a ground right here. This brown yellow is a ground, and this ground runs up to this junction connector right here. So it's a little short. So as you can see, it's a little short. I'm gonna extend it. So I have a longer one here. It's all taped together, but I'm going to extend these so they're all long enough for my vehicle speed sensor. So that's how I'm going to add the vehicle speed sensor. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. So now it's time to start cutting some stuff off. Here we have all 4 of these wires joined together, the ECU, the coolant, the IAT sensor, and the TPS runs all the way to here. So I'm using a new connector I got, and as you can see, I have a much longer wire, so I'll be able to run that real cleanly and kind of tucked a little bit. So we got to do the other 2 wires there. And then I also got the IAC wired in here too. So now this is pretty long as well, so this can kind of run under here and clip in. So next, we'll probably finish up the TPS. Then we'll extend the map, and we'll be kind of done in this area for now. So moved over here to the back of the harness, and like I said before, I think this is a C plug. So this is only for automatic cars, so this has all the wires for the automatic transmission sensors. So got all these untangled. This one is actually, there's like a junction here. So we're gonna D-pin this one. Yeah, we're gonna D-pin this one from this connector, and then we're gonna see if we can just pull all these wires right out of the harness. So with that, there is almost all of the automatic wires for the automatic trans. So this was the plug that went into the automatic ECU, and all these wires are removed from the harness. Now there are some wires still hanging on here. There's one connector, and I have to figure out what this is for first before I remove it. I'm not sure. And a lot of these are like spliced off. These might be like sensor power or stuff like that. This one is also, yeah, where was the other one? This one was also spliced off. So like these ones can be removed. I can clip it off and tape it up down here. And then we'll figure out what some of these other ones are. I think I was looking at this plug trying to figure out what all these wires were for, and I found a pinout for the C101 plug, which is this plug right here. This is a C101 plug, and there's quite a few wires on here that are only part of the automatic harness. These three right here being some of those wires, and if you look, this is a blue-black. The second one's a black-red, I think, or a red-black, and then there's a blue-white. And if you look over here on this plug right here, we have the red-black, the blue-white, the blue-black. So this plug must have been for sending some signals back to this C101 plug here. So we're gonna unwrap this, then we're going to D-pin all the automatic wires here, and then we're just gonna pull them right out of the harness. So let's get to it. Okay, so here's where we're at. We got all the wires, unneeded wires, pulled back. So we have these two wires, and I'm guessing, I don't know what these were, probably maybe sensor voltage or something like that, but they basically spliced off and provided some type of power to the automatic, one or two of the automatic connectors. So those can just be simply cut and just electrical taped. Now over here, we have 4 wires that appear to run down to the B plug. So I'm gonna go figure out what those are by looking at the diagram, and we'll make sure we don't need those, and then we can just D-pin them from here. Diagram, all these wires are unused. 3 of them are for the automatic trans, and then 1 of them is for something, I think evap, some emissions related. So we'll be able to remove all 4 of these. So I'm gonna try to be careful because I wanna keep this plug in good condition. So first you have to pull this lock up. Okay, made a tool. little hook to grab on there. Update, I turned the camera off because I was having a lot of trouble getting this lock all the way up. You have to make sure all these wires are pushed in and seated before you can get the lock all the way up, otherwise it'll keep hanging. So once I got that up, it was pretty easy to depin these. And then I also depin this red-blue wire because we're going to move that over to the A plug to run our vehicle speed sensor signal. And I trace that all the way back, and it's a straight shot all the way to this wire right here. So that's going to be our signal wire for the vehicle speed sensor. So on the C101 plug, we have pin 3 for our vehicle speed sensor signal going to the cluster. And then over here, that is going to run to the output on B11, on the B plug. So since we're running a counter shaft speed sensor, it's an 05 Accord trans, Hondata will output that signal on B11. So there's an awesome VTech Academy video for that. And then I moved our red-blue wire over to A18 for our vehicle speed sensor signal to go to the ECU. So now we just have to wire in the vehicle speed sensor over here.